Which clock do I want to believe? Okay. We call the Public Works meeting to order. First item of business, I'm going to have to leave at 20 till. Marion has a meeting at 6 o'clock that I have to get her to, so. And I guess the second thing is I want to make sure that we get item 4B, that we have to me, that seems like the most significant thing on here that I want to be present for. Does that make sense to you folks? That's about the snow and ice removal.
Mm-hmm. I think we can probably get to all of it, actually.
I think so too.
I think we can get to all the agenda by 4.
Okay, great. Okay, so Public Works Committee meetings minutes, committee meeting minutes from January 23rd. Any comments, suggestions, approvals?
Move to approve.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes. All in favor? Aye. Public comments? Well, we have no public comments today. Unfinished business, discussion of possible action on the Urban Forestry Tree Ordinance, Chapter 229 updates.
So this has kind of been an ongoing agenda item on Public Works Committee. After the last Public Works Committee meeting, did make some tweaks, and in the issue sheet, the biggest one that I had made prior to Sarah reviewing it this afternoon was in relation to the scenic riverway zone. So instead of having it in removals, because the removal portion of the ordinance is in reference to like public tree removals along boulevards and in our park system, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to confuse the NR 118 rules or requirements with that, so I moved it up to just under intent and purposes of the ordinance. So it's on the page 2. It just kind of goes through what the intent and purpose of the ordinance is, and then it just has a note: vegetation management, both public and private, occurring in the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway Zone shall adhere to policies set forth in Wisconsin Legislature Chapter NR 118. And then for your reference, in the packet, the last page of pertaining to this agenda item, I did put in there what NR 118 states about the riverway and what the restrictions are for vegetation management in that zone. So it gives you a better understanding of what it means when we say NR 118, what does that mean? So, it talks about ordinary high water mark setback areas, slope preservation zones, 40 feet landward from bluff lines shall be left undisturbed. It does have a disclaimer in there that routine pruning of trees or shrubs, improve the health and vigor, pruning to provide filtered view of the river, pruning to prevent property damage, or removing trees that pose immediate safety hazard, persons, and structures is allowed. So it does, there is that wording in there where I know your concern was, along First Street, not restricting it so much that people can't remove a dead tree or something that is hazardous. So it does say something in the NR 118 code about that. So that was a big change, is just taking out of that removal portion and kind of just putting it by itself, just to remind people that, hey, there is this legislation that we need to follow both as a city and as a private citizen. Mm-hmm. So there's that. The couple other things, I know, let's see, on page, Sarah was able to review it this afternoon, and she was just making some grammatical errors. Let's see, it'd be page 8. item 1D. Says permit any toxic chemical, gas, smoke, or oil or other injurious substance to seep, drain, or be emptied upon or about any public tree or shrub, except materials used for routine winter street maintenance by city departments. So we added the materials used for routine winter street maintenance by city departments. So it just keeps us in your email that we're still able to use salt brine, salt to treat our roads, so on and so forth. So we're not restricting ourselves in that way, which
All right,
makes
so
sense.
and then you made that one big sentence then.
Yep, and I just made one big sentence.
Very good.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. And then on page 7, there was an omission, 1A, talking about abatement. It says, the city forester shall keep a strict account of the cost of such work, the amount chargeable to each lot or parcel, and shall report such work, charges, description of lands to which charged, and names, addresses of the owners of such lands to the city clerk, and subsequently the common council on or before October 15th of each year. So there was a missing wording in there to the city clerk, because she takes care of all the assessment rules, so.
Okay, good.
Yep, yep. So we added that. And then let's touch base on abatement of public nuisances. It's going to be page 6, item 3B, kind of clarifying some of the language in there about the 15-day removal notice, scheduling of removals. And Sarah had made a comment, she actually had some of her staff members read it, and they kind of came to the conclusion that it still kind of sounds like we're requiring them to remove it within 15 days and not scheduling it within 15 days. So, let's see, halfway through the paragraph, it says, said written notice shall specify the nature and exact location of nuisance, the manner in which the nuisance shall be abated, and the time limit in which the scheduling for nuisance abatement must be completed by a resident, which shall be no less than 15 days after issuance of said notice unless the city. So basically taking the words that you had.
I kind of drafted up some language that I thought
Yeah.
would make it a little more clear and provided it to Mike.
Yeah.
And so I trust that you'll make that
Yep. Yep.
sound.
A lot better. And then the final sentence there says, the old one, it said residents shall submit proof of scheduling to city forester. So we added some language to that to make it more clear. It says residents shall submit proof of scheduling indicating the dates abatement is scheduled to the city forester within the time limit provided in said notice. The abatement must be scheduled as soon as possible with consideration given to third-party availability. I don't know if we want to keep that last sentence in there, because does that open up a door that says, well, they're not available, and we're 45 days later? That was my only question on that. But there might be times when.
Well, that was our rationale, and maybe we don't need to put the rationale in here. I'm just thinking, 10 years down the road when someone else is interpreting that, that's the only reason. We didn't say, oh, yeah, you're going to be in Cancun, so you can't do it. That, it was,
Oh, sure.
it was based on, can they find a company to do the work,
Yeah,
and what's their schedule? It's not based on the whims of the resident. I don't, so either way is fine with me. It does open up that door for sure, that they can say, oh, well, I couldn't find any company that couldn't do it within 4 months, so I'm not scheduling it until September.
yeah.
So, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, if you're tracking this conversation.
It's probably beyond my level of detail, but
Yeah,
I'm good with it if you got, the 15 days is what I hear you saying is, it's the 15 days that they have to schedule it. And as long as the city forester knows that, then they're good to go, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
So then scratch it, I agree.
okay.
If you have a problem because they didn't schedule it out until 4 months from now, then you gotta take that up with that resident.
I don't know, I'm kind of leaning the other direction.
Are you?
Is there something within a reasonable time, so we need a word or two in here that allows the city forester to question their schedule, their setup. We don't want to.
Yeah, forester shall determine that immediate action is necessary for public safety. Resident shall submit proof of scheduling indicating the dates abatement is scheduled to the city forester within the time limit provided in said notice. And the said notice will say, you have 15 days to schedule. And then this is the language that we're debating. The abatement must be scheduled as soon as possible with consideration given to third-party availability.
So maybe instead of as soon as possible, within a reasonable amount of time.
Something, yeah, give the city something that says we can question,
Yeah.
challenge.
Within a reasonable amount of time as determined by the city forester, maybe. So it's one person
Yes.
determining this and not
Time.
the nebulous.
Not the council?
Well, I mean,
You can say it,
Not the
Dean.
resident and not the
Yeah.
company that they've so
That makes sense.
supposedly hired.
yeah.
Because-
So it can happen quicker than having.
So the question is,
to-
are they working with the city forester?
right.
And as
That's-
long as they're working with the city forester, then I'm good with.
Yeah, and that's what we want, is
Yeah,
to be in
right,
communication with
right.
them. Because there will be instances, like you said, where, I mean, we have a lot of snowbirds in the community, right? And people aren't around for a couple months out of the year, so we got to be able to work with our residents too. Don't want to pigeonhole and start selling them, or start sending them abatement notices and assessments for things they weren't even aware of, right? So, yeah, that makes sense. If you're okay with that, I think
Yep.
that works. Okay. And then finally, it's just a grammatical error. It should be on page 4, so you have to flip back. Item Q, this talks about vision triangle. Third sentence down, third line connecting the curb lines at a distance of 15 feet in each directing should be direction. So it just made that grammatical change. So other than that, that's what I got, and if you don't pass it tonight, I quit.
Move to approve. I move to approve with the
I'm gonna-
changes as itemized.
I'm going to second, keeping Mike in mind.
Yeah, thank you. And this will, of course, go on to the city attorney for review before coming to council.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the chapter, the proposed changes to the urban forestry tree ordinance, chapter 229, as amended with comments tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
So it's good. That's what we want,
Okay, new business.
detail in
This is about action on newly introduced motions, ordinances, resolutions, or other matters. First item, discussion and possible action on the 2020 street maintenance program.
Right, so in your packet is the proposed street maintenance program for 2020. With Dean here now, he's been kind of a sounding board for myself, and between him and I, we went around and kind of assessed our current street situation. We'll kind of get to some of the things that he's been working on later on in the agenda as far as the pavement management plan, but the maintenance schedule that you see in front of you was derived from some of the work that Dean has been doing on the pavement management plan, which looks out to all of our streets to 2040 and kind of this treatment applications that we're going to be doing. So if you just kind of walk through the Excel spreadsheet, start at the top, Wisconsin Street, we're proposing a crack fill from 11th Street to Blakeman Boulevard, which is by Prospect Park. It's just a continuation of crack filling that we did last year on Wisconsin. And then once we get that portion crack filled, we want to go ahead and seal coat Wisconsin right away, complete with new striping, so on and so forth, because it's about that 5-year window. And from the training that I've been to and with Dean's expertise is that 4 to 6 year range is really when we want to get on our roads with seal coating. And so with him and I both being new, we want to take care of the roads that have been done within the last 5 years, because it's just so much more cost effective for the city to take care of the roads that are new compared to spending all the money trying to repair roads that you're basically throwing money away, putting lipstick on a pig, right? So that's kind of why, you know, with him on board, you know, a lot of our proposals this year and then moving forward are treatments on a lot of our newer roads, and then more kind of pulverizing, complete reconstruction on a lot of our older infrastructure, which is kind of logical.
We want to be a little more proactive in what we're doing rather than reactive, which is, you know, been the case for a while. So it's typically better to be proactive if you can, because it ends up being a lot more cost effective, like Mike said.
And a lot of the, I mean, people question, they'll look at Wisconsin, right? And they'll say, well, we just redid this road in 2015. Why are you already seal coating this? There's so many other roads to do this treatment to. And from just expertise, or not expertise, but just being in the field a lot or a number of years, is if you seal coat a road that has like polishing of the aggregate, exposed aggregate, so on and so forth, the seal coat doesn't last very much. So take, for example, Bear Road. As you're going out towards the town of Hudson on Bear Road, I mean, that road was recently seal coated, and you can just see it's already peeling off a couple years later. So it's just money that's being thrown away. And so we want to be stewards of the money that we are getting and putting them on roads that are going to have the most amount of effect on them. So continuing, Crestview Drive, we crack filled that last summer, looking to do a seal coat on that. And when I say seal coat, it's a chip seal, which we've done in the past year. And then once the chip seal has set in, get the loose rock swept off, we come back with a fog seal. So you get that nice black looking, looks like a new road, right? And then we'll stripe it. So that's what we mean by seal coat. Okay.
And the chip seal being like a little layer of rock that's kind of glued to the existing pavement.
Yep.
So, in case you weren't aware of what chip seal is.
Yep. So Crestview Drive, and as long as we're in that area, Gateway Boulevard and Badger Drive, which is the short stretch to Quick Trip and then around to like AutoZone, in that area. As long as we're there, we'll hit that short stretch, because that's within that time frame. And then the remaining projects on the list here are all crack filling. So Grandview Drive north of Vine Street, we did Grandview Drive last year, so continuing that project north of Vine. Ash Drive, which is a short trunk off of Grandview that is in need of some crack filling, as long as we're right there. Hanley Road, which we just did a mill and overlay, and if you've driven down it, there's a lot of reflective cracking that we got to get sealed up before it starts really breaking apart on us. Like I said, that was done in 2018. It's already, I don't know if you've driven down it, but just take a peek at it next time you're out in that area. I mean, you can really see a lot of the cracks, and we got to get them filled. So Hanley Road, Darnold Drive, which is out by the movie theater, and then finally the stage line roundabouts, the new ones that were installed as part of the hospital project. So get those sealed up too. So in all, estimated costs, miscellaneous road striping for Crestview, Wisconsin, a little bit on Hanley. So we got an estimated total of $196,899. We do have $230,000 in the CIP for that. So, I mean, there is some wiggle room just in case some of the bids come in higher. We're able to adjust and do what we want to do. If they come in lower, then we'll look to maybe add to the project as well. So, but we won't know until we go out for bid.
You said that, you footnoted that engineering costs aren't in there.
Yep.
Are they separate, or would they come out of the 230?
They would typically take that out of the 230.
Okay,
So when Dean will do the plans and specs in-house in the bid packet.
Okay.
So his time would be charged to that 230.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And having me charged to it will hopefully keep the cost down compared to having, going out for a consultant to do it
Absolutely.
and stuff.
Because
Absolutely, it
we're only
will.
paying Dean $100 an hour, where Bolton and Mink, we were paying $150.
Not directly into my wallet,
No,
$100.
I'm not, no.
I wish, but
When we do the road striping,
Yeah.
we'll be doing any consideration to, I guess I would ask that we would consider striping perhaps some improvements, right? For example, on the Hanley Road, I think when we striped it, we could have given more room to some of the bike and the shoulder lanes than we did. And take a look at extending, making sure that those are as good as it can be. I guess that was.
yeah, for Hanley, we're not, so that works really well for when we're actually doing the seal coat on, because you're kind of essentially covering everything
Right,
up that's
yeah,
there.
crack seal, right.
Yeah, crack seal, you're not really doing a lot of that. So that, if you had any suggestions for like Wisconsin or Crestview, Gateway, or Badger Drive, like that would be a good time to implement some of those changes now, or with the project or whatever as well. Okay. So
I think and we'll talk about this later, the goal is, so Crestview Drive, this year, and then next year we would continue, we would do Hagan Street, then we do Hanley all the way out to the roundabouts, at Highway 35 roundabouts, and get that whole kind of U seal coated up, you know, new striping, so on and so forth, because, you know, as we drive around, we look at all the roads, and it's challenging because we only have a certain amount of money, right? And we got 80 miles of roads. And we'll get calls, I'll get calls from residents saying, you know, I need my cul-de-sac redone, or this residential street needs to be updated. And I don't disagree with them, they do. I mean, it's, our roads are in rough shape. But it's hard to justify spending thousands and thousands of dollars on roads that see an average daily traffic of 100 cars when we're out like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 average cars on Hagan, Hanley, so on and so forth. So, I mean, those are conversations moving forward that this board will have, and that's why it's important to get this pavement management program in place. So,
Do you have a second list of things we should be doing? Because you were looking at a dollar,
yep, yep.
maxing out the dollar amount that we have in the budget.
Well, yes, I guess it kind of goes into the pavement management plan stuff, but there are quite a few things we could do in town that we could spend money almost endlessly to, you know, be upgrading, you know, our infrastructure and whatnot. So it's just kind of, if we had $500,000 to do this stuff with, we'd have more streets. We could identify more streets to do this on. I don't know what the magic number is for that stuff, but we could certainly always find something to do with extra funding for the spending money now in preventative maintenance mode helps us to not have to spend it later for reconstruction mode.
I'm thinking about how do we start preparing the council for next year. We're going to be asking for $300,000 because we're losing ground. It's part of this whole plan.
Yep.
Getting all the information.
I think that,
So we're not ready for that yet, right?
Well, it sounds like we'll be talking about that.
Yes, I guess I have to stand up. Anyhow, Marion Weber, 604 Grandview Drive. I'm representing myself in River Valley Trails, but when you do these roads, as long as they're seal coated, all the striping is gone, as you know. And in some places there have been bike lanes put in, but they aren't as wide as they could or should be. So I would just really like for there be a lot of focus on making the striping more pedestrian bicycle friendly.
Yeah, the nice part is that it's a blank slate essentially, so you can start fresh with
Right.
whatever
Exactly.
you want to do.
Anyhow.
Yep.
So.
So,
but to your question, Jim, it was a couple of Public Works Committee meetings ago where I ran some of those Whistler reports, right, with the bar graphs. And I think that was a good illustration at the current spending levels, we're not gaining any ground. In fact, we're losing ground on our roads. And so that narrative from that report can be easily, I think, explained at council this upcoming fall for a monetary adjustment in the budget moving forward to try and at least gain a little bit every year, you know.
From your perspective, when do we need to present that to council? Do we want to wait until all the numbers are coming in for budget, or should we be starting to
I'd think
preface or prep them for this?
I would try to prep them like in the summer or something for it. Because I agree, that was the question I had was, is it just too small of a budget to really make an impact on the roads we have? So, obviously in the fall is the budget cycle. So I think the further out or further before we can get, the better off we are. So late spring or early summer or something like that. It'd be nice to have beyond this and to say, here's what we could do X if we had Y basically in funding. And I think that would be a good thing for the council to grapple with.
So that's
Good.
maybe is that a target for you guys to work towards?
Yep.
certainly.
So are you looking for a motion to approve?
Yep, just looking for a motion to approve the scope and proceed with advertisement for bids.
I would move to approve the 2020 proposed street maintenance program.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, guys. And, Any question? Got it mapped by road section. Item B, 4B, review and discussion of 212-9 snow and ice removal.
Yeah, I'll introduce it. So Jim and I have been speaking about our current snow removal operations. You know, me being here fairly new, I've been able to kind of look at our operations for snow removal and some of the deficiencies that we have currently. I get a lot of phone calls on snow removal on trails. Currently in the city of Hudson, we treat trails the same way that we treat sidewalks. So if a trail abuts a private property, we expect the private property owner to shovel the trail, just like we expect a private property owner to shovel a sidewalk. While we run into situations along Hanley and other parts of the city where the trail's not even really adjacent to a property, they're on the backside of properties and nobody's really taking ownership of it. And so I'll receive many phone calls from people, from residents, that the snow is not being removed on trails. So what I'm going to propose, and not for this year, but for next year's budget, is actually hiring another full-time employee for the Public Works Department to take care of snow removal on all of our public trails, which we have, it's about 18 miles of public trails. So they take care of public trails, they would take care of parking lots downtown, and then they would assist in like alleys when other people are gone, or so on and so forth, and then possibly the skating rink. But, you know, that's kind of one of the bigger areas of need that I see the city. And I worked, my previous place of employment, the city has always taken care of snow removal on trails. So when I came to Hudson, and then we're not plowing trails, except for the ones that like go through the parks, of course, that was different to me. So that's one of my recommendations. And then secondly, as Jim had alluded to me, is, you know, our downtown snow removal operations. Right now, we're probably getting to the snow removal about 3 to 4 days after a snow event. Obviously, we ran into a situation a couple weeks ago where we had 3 snow events in 1 week. And as a director, I'm going to wait until the last one before I go in there and clean it. Because we don't have time in between snow events to break down equipment, get all the equipment back up and running. Just from an operational standpoint, it's less overtime that we have to pay as well. But I think there are ways to improve that, whether we contract out hauling, where we have 3 of our staff come in, pull the snow off, blow it, but then we contract all the hauling out. Because what's happening is we'll go out and plow snow like we did yesterday. Then the next day, we're going around and we're cleaning up skips. A lot of cars parked down the road, so we're pushing back snow, hitting icy hills, so on and so forth, for some refreeze spots. So then we're 2 days in. 3rd day, we're breaking down trucks. And then 4th day, we're downtown cleaning up. So this week, we have it scheduled for Friday morning, which is 5 days out. We have a couple guys gone on vacation, so we're limited on staff. So a couple guys are coming back on Thursday, and we'll hit it Friday morning. So, but typically, I try to get it within that 3 to 4 day range, and it's challenging to some extent. And then downtown snow removal for sidewalks. I mean, I think the majority of the business owners do a really good job on shoveling their snow. There might be a couple here and there, but I really don't get any complaints with snow removal downtown on the sidewalks, which is good. So other than that, I don't know if Jim, if you want to touch on anything else moving forward. I know the ordinance, the ordinance itself talks about snow removal on sidewalks, pushing snow across the street into somebody else's property. Other than that, I mean, there's not a lot in the ordinance relating to snow removal, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. One thought I had, I just realized I was watching a business owner push snow off his sidewalk, only he can't push it into the street. So they push it up to the edge, and they create that ridge that then when you get out of your car, you try to step through, step on, step over, fall on. So that's a catch-22 for the business owners.
Yeah.
I said, we really need it to get it off the street, even for you to have effective removal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it has to get off the sidewalk into the street to have effective removal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got 2 operations you have to.
Right.
Seems to me.
And
So that's a piece we need to to look at and see, is there some better partnerships with the business owners that we could create that would help everybody.
Yeah. Because I know when I worked in Wabasha, our downtown snow removal efforts, we actually plowed all the snow to the center line. And then people were able to park along the curb, right, because all the snow was, and then we would come back the next day and clean it up. But I don't know if the state would even allow us to do that. I would have to ask them to see if, and I mean, that's another way of doing it too. So I think we're just trying to look at ways outside the box of what we have been doing in the past. And we don't want to do it just because this is the way we've done it for the last 20 years. I mean, if there's an operational, better way to operate and be more efficient as a staff, I'm open to any ideas that you would have in the future, and not just tonight, but I mean, if you think of things, just run it by me and we can talk about it. So I'm open, but I do see a definite need for the trails in our community. I think it'd be a lot more, it'd be a great service to the people that utilize the trail system in the wintertime to get around and to be mobile. And then that person could also do sidewalk compliance matters, because that's a whole nother ballgame, right? I mean, late December, we had some downtime and the city went out and did some sidewalk compliance, and I think I had emailed both of you. I don't know if I copied you. And it's challenging, right? Because the people that aren't shoveling their sidewalks, they let it sit. Of course, it kind of melts and freezes down and gets trampled, and then we go and, I mean, it's just ice on their sidewalks. We get a complaint, or go out and being proactive, and we hang a compliance matter on their door. They're like, well, I can't shovel this, it's ice, right? And then we go and take care of it, and we bill them, and then they call and complain, and it's a never-ending battle with sidewalk compliance. But I know in the past we did try to contract that out, and that was challenging because the contractor wasn't getting us the invoices in an appropriate amount of time. So then we weren't able to pass those costs onto the property owner, so then the city was basically swallowing those costs. So we have tried that in the past, it didn't work. So I think the best way to do it would to be in-house, but to have a really robust program. I mean, we're snapping photos, we're trying everything we can, so when people do call in, it says, well, we have date, address, photo stamp, time, date stamp on it. You know, sorry, and of course you get every excuse in the book of why it wasn't done, and it's, like I said, it's challenging.
Hey, Mike, I want to say that Mike Johnson and the police department and everybody have been kind of talking about maybe having them help out with compliance on snow and ice removal type stuff. Is that correct? Or I can't remember if that was correct or not.
I haven't heard anything on that.
So,
I do know that.
I mean, that's also a possibility to get them involved in some of the enforcement stuff as well. Just a thought.
Yeah. But I would say probably, well, spitballing, probably 40% of the calls we get are related to trail, snow removal, and then the other 60% are sidewalk related.
For the trail removal that you're thinking about for next year, I know we're jumping ahead, but since we were talking about it, are any of those trails not city-owned, but more owned by the developer for those communities?
There are a few trails, Red Cedar Canyon, for example. That's a association-owned trail. One through Grandview, Stone Pine. It's a privately owned trail. There are a couple, but an overwhelmingly majority are public.
Are you thinking that we would take care of those private ones too?
Not at this time, no.
Okay,
Yeah, just the public ones.
very good.
So is there any action that you're looking for? You were just,
You know, not at this time. I was just basically opening this up to the committee to get you thinking about it. Maybe you've heard something, a resident has called you and has an idea, to pass that along to me. So as we're trying to rethink, you know, our operations, how we can better serve the community. So that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those of you who are watching, give Mike a call. Or your council person.
Nah, you can give me a call. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Thank you. So are we thinking in another 30 days you'll have some more, looking for some more concrete ideas, investigation, or is
Well-
this going to continue on for another 90 days? I mean, I'm just spitballing here.
I mean, when it comes to trails, I mean, we don't have the staff right now to take that on. So that's going to be a next year program. As far as the downtown snow removal, we could maybe look at changing our sequence of removal to get it out of there earlier rather than later. Have to be the third day instead of the fourth day, but I mean, as far as changing the ordinance, are you looking for stuff to change the ordinance to make it have more teeth, or?
No, I'm just, what are your, does it need more, does the ordinance need more teeth? Do we need more help in inspection? I guess
Yeah.
perhaps what this is going to say, here are the things we need in order to have an effective
Right,
snow removal
yeah.
program.
I could certainly put something together for that.
Maybe that's the way to approach this.
Yeah.
Ideas? How we move forward?
I mean, I think the trail piece has to be clarified for sure. Because I don't think that's really clear in the ordinance.
Right.
But when I looked through the ordinance, I didn't see a lot of deficiencies in the current ordinance. I think it's more almost like a operational thing,
Yeah.
like getting the staff you need to be able to enforce it or to do the trails.
Yeah.
It almost seems to me more like a budget issue for the fall than anything.
Yeah. It's.
If I'm hearing you right, I don't know.
It
if
comes
that's-
down to available man hours, right? I mean, a lot of our guys, they don't take vacations in the wintertime, right? Because they know that they're counted on to perform snow removal. But there are times where guys want to get away in the winter, just like all of us want to get away in the winter, right? And it just so happens that, it never fails when somebody's gone, it snows. The other piece too that I want to bring to your attention is we currently have 2 members from the water utility department that do help us out on snow removal procedures. So one person operates a motor grader for us, then the other person takes care of alleys right now. But it's kind of at his schedule allows, right? Because he's doing some meter repair, so on and so forth. So that's like yesterday, he wasn't available on a Sunday. So then we weren't able to get to alleys until this morning, and Sarah had received a call about alleys. But it comes down to manpower, right? When you're talking trails, you're talking, what do you got? 60 miles of sidewalks to inspect, and it's hard to get to everything, right?
And it's all happening at the same time, too,
Yeah.
is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've already been putting in hours and hours for days.
Right.
Yeah, they're already working, they've been on overtime for the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 or 3
Yeah,
days.
it's a budgetary issue as well. You gotta be.
it's a people issue too. You
Yeah.
burn your people out.
Yeah, exactly.
I just would like to acknowledge that I think despite all the challenges of resources and lack thereof, that you've done a great job at stepping in and working with the system that we had in place for years and years. And I really love that I'm hearing you saying that you're interested in, really brainstorming some operational changes that will make it even more effective. But, we've had a couple of challenging years, your first 2 years, winters here. A lot of snow and timing issues have been definitely a challenge with the snowfalls we did get. So I just want to thank you for the hard work that you've done to make it as good as it has been.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and the staff has been great. I mean, they've answered the bell throughout the season. A lot of early mornings, 2:00 in the morning, late nights, a lot of weekends for a stretch there. It was every weekend for 3 straight weekends. So I mean, they're giving up a lot of their family time as well. So I appreciate all their hard work too.
Okay, moving on, project update. Industrial Street and Stage Line Road Mill and Overlay.
Dean, you want to take this one?
Sure. So we, at the last city council meeting, have adopted a resolution for the essentially starting the special assessment process for the Industrial Street and Stage Line Mill and Overlay project. The plans and specifications are done for the project, so now we're just kind of in the public meeting and all that kind of stuff process. So we're going to be having a public hearing for the project on March 9th, and then after that, hopefully, everything goes well, council will adopt plan specifications, we can go out to bid. We're shooting for opening bids April 1st for construction when school is out this summer. So seems that everything is on track for that schedule. So again, Industrial Street from Crestview to Hanley and Stage Line from Carmichael to essentially the hospital roundabout is what we would be looking at milling and overlaying, and also with that replacing spot curb segments and repairing catch basins and adding a couple storm sewer lines that will help drainage on Industrial Street as well. So it's kind of what the project entails. So that's where we're at with the process. So does anybody have any questions on that project or anything related to it? Okay. I'll also talk about the next one, the introduction of the pavement management plan, hopefully real quick.
Excuse me, I do have to leave now. So
Okay.
Paul, would you
Sure.
take over for me, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Guys, getting us through this.
So we are looking into creating a pavement management plan, and really as it's kind of evolved from its infancy, has kind of turned more into pavement and other infrastructure management plan, because if you think about kind of the entire street right of way, you've got not only the stuff on top, the pavement surface you drive on, you also got the curb and gutters that convey drainage, you've got the sidewalks that are on the sides of the road, you got the underground utilities, they all kind of have to an ecosystem that kind of all relate together, and you don't want to say improve the street surface when you got a 100-year-old pipe underground that needs to be replaced, and so you're throwing your money away by doing a mill and overlay on something that needs to really actually be reconstructed, that kind of thing. What we've been doing is we've been compiling a bunch of data as far as pavement surface conditions, curb conditions, using the sidewalk inventory that we just completed last year, looking at the ages of pipes underground, looking at kind of the life cycle of pavement too, to make sure that's we're not milling and overlaying something that
So then Dean's
due
been,
for
yeah.
something else.
So Dean's been putting these maps together. So this one, for example, has surface ages of all of our street surfaces, and then it goes into looking at the underground utility ages, and he kind of maps out the infrastructure that's 80 to 100 years, 70 to 100, 100 to 120, and then over 120 years old, and he maps that all out. So that's kind of what he's just talking to as far as looking at the relation of the road versus the underground utilities. And then part of the pavement management program is coming up with a program that looks at seal coating, that looks at reconstructing, that looks at mill and overlay or pulverizing. So then he's putting together programs for, seal coat for the first 5 years out. And then he goes to a seal coat for the next 5, seal coat for the next 5, and it gets us all the way out to 2040. And then conversely, he's doing it for mill and overlay from 2020 to 2040. And then he's looking at full depth reclamation, and this is all based upon the underground utility ages and the life cycle of the road.
Yep. And the current condition of the road too.
Yeah, current condition of the road. So he's putting together kind of a roadmap for us in the city on how we should be spending our dollars and how we're going to spend it wisely over the next 20 years, right? So we actually have a plan. We kind of have a target as far as funding. We can have answers for people when they call in, say, when is my road going to be redone? What are you doing to it? We can, pavement management plan says it's done in 2021 or 2031 and you're getting a complete reconstruct, so they're not blindsided. So, so I mean, I think a lot of larger municipalities have this type of program in place. So proposed full reconstruction from 2021 to 2040, a lot of it's for the full reconstruct is in the downtown area because of the age of infrastructure underneath. So I mean, it's just, like I said, it's much needed in the community. And I appreciate Dean taking this on. I mean, this is a lot of Dean's work here. So I really do appreciate this because it's very, very helpful from a director's level and a board and council level too.
So yeah, I've made a bunch of maps and stuff right now, kind of the preliminary, what I've come up with. There's kind of draft right now. We're not really sharing them right now, but just that's kind of where we're headed, is trying to digest all the information and put it into a concrete plan of what we're going to do and when, and then what a dollar amount is attached to that. So it kind of funnels right into a CIP type.
Yeah.
Being able to plan for the future and stuff. I feel that if you don't have a plan, it's really easy to not take into account all the things that you have to do. You don't see everything in front of you. So going through it systematically and making sure that you've thought about all the different components that are part of your infrastructure, making sure you have the right plan at the right time to do these things is important. So, and I, going through all this, I've just come to the conclusion that we've, for better or for worse, not having a plan has caused us to fall behind on a lot of things, and that's not uncommon for a lot of communities of the same character. When I was in Red Wing, we had a similar, deal where the downtown area had a lot of pipes in the ground that were over 100 years old, because that's when the bulk of that area was built, and just didn't get maintained as much as it should be anyway. And it's so anyway, just wanted to let you know that that's in the works and coming soon, and we're hoping, I think, next month to kind of have a little bit more of a formalized presentation on some of the actual data that we've collected, and kind of where we go from here. So just know it's in the works in the background.
And then for this committee level, I mean, your role in this is obviously to review the plan, make comments on it, so on and so forth. But we also need you to kind of guide staff on realistic funding goals, right? Because obviously we'd love to follow the plan to the T, and we might, maybe the council will commit that amount of funding. But I mean, there's a lot of needs in the community, and we're going to need to have those conversations where we set realistic funding goals. Is it $2 million a year? Is it $3 million a year? Is it $1 million? Is it 500,000? But that's kind of alluding to what Jim's conversation was earlier, is making sure that we're conveying that message to council on the need, and having this committee be involved on what is a realistic program to follow, because that's important.
Yep, and I think that we should keep in mind that tax incremental financing districts, because some of that money that comes in, right, can be used, I think it's within a mile of that district, and also those eventually will dissipate or end, and so there's going to be better cash in the future, best way to say it, when those districts get closed out.
Sure.
So some of this, if we have it planned out and say, here's the need, X, Y, Z, when those districts get closed out, that's a great argument to say, here's what we have, here's what the needs are.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we can't do it now too, but I think looking forward, that's hopeful, I think, so.
Yeah, good.
And the hope is too that this would be something that we reevaluate, say every 10 years or something, how are we doing? Did we keep up with what the plan said? Did we fall behind? Do we have needs we didn't anticipate, kind of?
Yeah.
Or did we think that we were worse off than we are, all that kind of stuff. So hoping that it would kind of be almost like a comprehensive plan for our infrastructure. That's kind of how I envision it, looking forward to the future, making plans accordingly. So.
Might need to be more often than that 10-year, maybe more like every few years, really. I think we, without a plan, it eventually becomes more expensive for our taxpayers. And while they don't well, no one wants to look at a big number right out the gate, looking at a bunch of small numbers and then having emergency money needed because we've created a monster by neglect is not good either. So I think planning and getting a good handle on what is realistic for the next 20 years is a really great idea, and using technology to the fullest so it's not kind of knee-jerk decisions based on people's complaints rather than actual hard data that we can turn to. And I think everyone will be just more confident in the decisions that we make on an annual basis with what we are going to do versus what we're going to leave for a few, years down the road. It was very informative to me to learn just this evening, that doing too much to a pretty much broken road is kind of really a waste of money. So putting it in to newer, doing what. So I'm just grateful for the planning that you've done so far, and I look forward to seeing the results in another month or so.
Yep. We'll bring it back for full review. Yep, absolutely.
Highway 35, public engagement meeting?
Yeah, so this is just a update, the Highway 35 project that the state is spearheading in 2021. They have scheduled their second public engagement meeting. It is February 26th from 5 until 7 is the city's portion. That's a Wednesday, and it'll be held at City Hall again. From 7 until 9 will be the Village of North Hudson portion, but public is welcome to come at any time during that duration to ask questions of the state. They'll have state representatives here, city staff will be here, the state's engineering firm will be here to answer any questions. So just wanted to make that aware to the general public that is happening on February 26th at 5, from 5 to 7.
That was a Wednesday?
That's a Wednesday, the 26th, February.
Okay.
Will they have an agenda? Or do
They will be sending out letters to all of the impacted property owners along the stretch. We will also be putting it out on social media of this meeting as well to make people aware to show up, because it's not just the people that live along the road, it's the people that are blocks off too that are impacted as well, right? The whole community's impacted. So
I think that's Ash Wednesday, so just so you know.
Oh, it
That
is.
might be a tough night for some people to get there. I don't know what different churches do that night, but just a thought.
yeah, they contacted me with a date. I can email them back and see if they want to continue with that, because we have everything scheduled, but maybe it's not too late to change.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that would be I
Yeah.
mean, depending on
Yeah,
people's churches
Schedules.
and what they do, it's just something to be aware of, so.
yeah, okay. That's all I have for that one. One last thing that I wanted to add for project updates, it isn't on the agenda, is just our salt usage for the year. We're at approximately 900 tons of our salt usage. We have 1,600 guaranteed to us, so we're roughly over half of our allotted amount for the 2020 season. We do have the possibility of getting 300 more ton from the reserve. It's in our contract, so if we do need it, there is that available to us. So we approximately go through about 100 ton of salt every time it snows, snowstorm. Obviously, the ice storms that we had earlier this season really kind of ramped things up where you're going through a little bit more, but just keep your fingers crossed we get no more big ice events, please. So just want to let the committee know that.
Thank you. Excuse me, items for future agendas. Anybody have any things that you'd like to see? I think for me, the big thing would be the plans that you're working on with the photos and the, just the thinking.
Yeah.
Not that it has to be done at the next one, but just, I want to keep us pushing that ball forward so that we have the opportunity to bring it to council with kind of our ducks in a row, so to speak, so. Anything, Sarah?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
So we'll, just to let you know, we'll be bringing forth a program for the sidewalk replacement program for 2020.
Okay.
And then we'll also be bringing forward curb replacement program for 2020 as well. That's going to focus on downtown area in preparation of 2021. So just to let you know.
Very good.
Yeah,
So it'll be
I want to
coming up on
affirm
future
the proactive nature that I see you leading this department and Dean as well, but I think it's really going to be good
Yeah.
in the future. It's getting us in the right direction, so I
Appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Move
all I
to, move to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Thanks, you guys.
everyone.